amount of people you have in any meeting is going to determine the amount of success you have. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
You guys understand it's early, but we're going to get it cranking here today. And if you're going to make it through here today with a ton of intensity and energy, you got to step your game up, okay? But you know, as we get started, you know, this business is all about promotion, but it's any business is about promotion. And one of the things I always talk about, that it doesn't matter if you're playing the NFL. You know, a lot of people think that professional athletes, like a professional football player, gets paid to play football. But they don't. They do not get paid to play football. They get paid to put fans in the stands. If not, nobody would get a check. Y'all understand that? If they sucked so bad nobody wanted to come see them play, they would make no money. Y'all understand? Like, I promise you, the Miami Heat organization will make more money this year than it did last year. Why? Because they won the championship. And anytime you win the championship, people want to come back to see if you're going to do it again. So understand, it doesn't matter if you're in the NBA, if you're in the NFL, if you're in Frank Erica, or you own a restaurant. The job you do at promoting is going to determine the amount of income that you make. So you got to understand the biggest promoters always make the most money. And that's just the way it is. See, if nobody knew about Miami winning the championship, it would have been a different story, right? So there's big promoters. I'm gonna talk about boxing because this is a sport that I know, but it's also a sport that runs on promotion. It's also a sport that is run by people who say, you have to come watch this. You've got to pay money to watch this. And it's a sport that's not necessarily shown on live TV where they make all the big money. It's a sport that promoters determine the success of the event, which is the exact same as your event, right? So there's guys like Oscar De La Hoya or Floyd Mayweather, which I'll talk about more today. But anybody know who that guy is right there? Everybody knows who he is. Now, you might not know anything about boxing, you might not know anything about the sport, but everybody knows who that guy is. So let's look at Don King for a second and ask, is he a promoter? See, Mike Tyson is who he promoted. He actually promoted Muhammad Ali as well. But Mike Tyson was 20 years old. He was 20-0, and he'd been paid $100 million. People ask why. Well, because of Don King, and I'm going to prove that to you here in a second, but it was because Don King was such a great promoter, which is why Mike Tyson made $100 million at 20 years of age, at 20-0. Okay? You guys heard fights like the Rumble in the Jungle. Yes, you know who's heard of the Rumble in the Jungle? Everybody in this room. Now that fight was before most of us, I know it was before, like, I was alive. Right? How about the Thrilla in Manila? Raise your hand if you heard of that before. You know, everybody's heard of that. See, the whole world knows and still knows, and those are fights that Don King put on. You think that was before social networking? That was before they did commercials on TV? That was before they had billboards on the side of the road? And everybody in this room knows those two sayings to that fight. And most people in this room weren't even alive when it happened, right? Some of us were alive, those words still live on, which is why Don King has been paid over $1 billion to promote boxing. He's never set foot in the ring. Is that incredible or what? Okay? So, how about anybody heard of this guy? A few people, right? If you're a Manny Pacquiao fan, maybe you know. But nobody knows who he is. See, the whole room knew who Don King was. Everybody in the room knew who Don King was, but a handful of people knew who this guy is. This guy's name is Bob Arum. He's also a promoter, but obviously not a very good one because nobody knows who he is. So before I say he's not a very good one, let's talk about him for a second, right? Bob Arum was Floyd Mayweather's promoter. Floyd Mayweather was 20-0 and had made no money yet. At that time, he was still pretty much, he wasn't broke, but he wasn't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. But Bob Arum was his promoter, right? So Floyd at that time starts thinking, well, Mike Tyson is 20-0 and been paid $100 million. I'm 20-0 and still not making any money. I'm just going to do it myself. I can make all the money. I can make all the revenue. I probably made more money if less people showed up. So Floyd Mayweather decides to promote himself, but now it's all up to him to put on the whole event. So, what is the difference? Manny Pacquiao right now is promoted by a guy named Bob Arum. Some guys get a baby out. about right now, there's this big controversy about will Manny Pacquiao fight Floyd Mayweather. Even if you're not a boxing fan, you probably heard something about it. But Manny Pacquiao made $7.8 billion. Manny Pacquiao was the #2 highest paid athlete in the world last year, and he made $40 billion, which means $32 million of it came from where? Endorsements. Floyd Mayweather made $70 million, and how much came from endorsements? Zero. He has no endorsements, which means $70 million came from his sport. So how does that happen? Well, he says, I'm going to become my own promoter, so I'm going to put on my own event. So now Floyd Mayweather now he's got to rent out the whole event, so now he's got to go pay $5 million to rent out the MGM Arena. Just like Chris was talking in our room last night, said he had to pay $150,000 to get this event put on. You didn't have to write a $150,000 check, did you? But if you did, you would be the highest paid person in this room, which is why Chris makes more money than anybody. So understand, he pays the $5 million to get the arena. He just bought Miguel Cotto the last fight he paid Miguel Cotto $10 million. Now that came out of Floyd Mayweather's personal account. Floyd Mayweather paid Miguel Cotto $10 million. Here's $10 million, thanks for the fight. Before it even gets started, he pays $2.5 million for the event staff. You guys ever heard the guy, let's get ready to rumble? Anybody heard that guy? Floyd Mayweather pays his check. Floyd Mayweather pays him to come in. Floyd Mayweather pays Larry Merchant, the guy that didn't even like, to come announce the fight. He pays for the security, he pays for everybody. That cost him $2.5 million. $2.5 million, he's got to put them up in hotel rooms. He's got to pay for their flights, he's got to pay for their food. But now he's got to start paying for promotional items, which in our business would be like tickets or flyers or gas to get around town to go on kitchen table appointments or brochures or whatever it may be. In Floyd's business, it might be advertising, so he pays $5 million to put billboards. If you guys walk down the strip during and the Floyd Mayweather fight's getting ready to come up, they're handing out t-shirts, they're handing out brochures, yes or no? They're handing out flyers and tickets. He pays $1 million, probably more than that, to fly city to city. He usually does a 10 to 15 city tour, goes city to city to city to city to tell everybody why they need to come to Las Vegas and watch the fight. If you're getting married in Vegas, watch the fight after. Right? He gets paid to do those things, and I'm going to prove to you how. Then he's got to pay $500,000, get flyers, tickets, t-shirts, all that kind of stuff printed, and that's a $26.5 million cost to put on an event. Now let me ask you this, what's it cost you to put on an op meeting? What's it cost? Zero. See, the reason why he makes the money he makes is because he writes a $26 million check. So when he writes a $26 million check to put on an event, he acts like it. Y'all understand that? He actually acts like I got $26 million worth of skin in the game. See, most of you act like you have nothing in the game. You act like you have no skin in the game. That's why you don't bring anybody. You hide in the crowd. You hope nobody notices that you don't have anybody. So then, he's got to start producing income. So he sets the cost of the event. He's got to start producing income. So now he sells the tickets. Sort of 15,000 seats at the MGM Arena. Let's say it's $200 a piece, which is more than that, but that's $3 million. He's got 4 seats. Ringside seats, there's 500 of them, $5,000 a piece on average. Some are less, some are more. That's $2.5 million. So it cost him $5 million to get the arena. He only made $500,000. So that's not a lot of money. He didn't make us $70 million there, yes or no? No. Then he starts selling shirts and posters and all that kind of stuff. He makes an extra $500,000. He makes, every time you buy a beer, a hot dog, or something like that, at the fight, Floyd gets a check. Is that pretty good? And a beer's $8, right? So he makes $250,000 there. Now the biggest part is how many middle-class butts he can get in chairs in front of the TV that'll pay $59.99 for pay-per-view. So last fight he had 10 million pay-per-view views. At $60 a pop is $600 million. So I want you to think about a guy who just produced $600 million in revenue for HBO. They give him 10%, that's $60 million. Then, out of the HBO revenue comes his fighter guarantee, which the last fight he bought was $30 million. That's a revenue of $96 million. Now, in any business, you take a revenue, you subtract your what? Expenses. Your revenue, subtract your expenses, leaves you with a profit. Just so happens that profit was about $69 million. Which, what did he make his last fight? million. See, it's no coincidence why he makes what he makes. But the better job he does of promoting, the more tickets he sells, the more people he gets to buy a pay-per-view, the more posters he sells, the more t-shirts he sells, the more people he gets to show up, the higher the ticket price. You know, most fights are less than $59.99. Why is his cost more? Because he has negotiating rights with HBO that he determines the price point. Pretty good, right? So, with that being said, how do you grow a primary business? How do you grow your attendance? See, understand that we get paid just like he does. You get paid exactly the same, and it's to get middle-class butts in chairs. Do you all get that that's the business we are in? Yeah. See, everything inside of me, I understand that if